participants. It's a great honor to be part of these discussions, and actually I feel myself very privileged in some way to be here. Since I would like to correct you, Professor Dugin, I don't have a background, unfortunately, in a philosophy or a theology. I have a different background, and I would like to briefly share with my personal experience why I am here. Just a few years back, I guess, I was a very liberal-oriented person, and certainly I had a lot of criticism towards the system we are in. But what I see now, it was all within the same paradigm of the liberal thinking. And somehow I was not satisfied with this. And when I came across, was lucky enough with the works of traditionalists represented by Genon and Evola, with your works when you spoke a lot from the position of the Orthodox Christian, and with some other philosophers, and certainly with the Geydar Dzhemal, who spoke from the position of Islam, it was a total, I would say, mind-blowing experience when the whole new universe with its unique meaning unfolded before my eyes. And that's how it radically reshaped my life, my way of thought, and conceptualizing and accepting the reality. So I would like to say personally thank you to you, Professor Dugin, for the amazing work you are doing to enlighten people from all over the world. And when I saw the topics that you outlined for this conference, I remembered your lecture on the radical subjects, your first two lectures on the radical subjects, when you mentioned that this notion, this term of the radical subject probably was firstly introduced by Geydar Dzhemal. And that's why I decided to focus on his understanding, on the Geydar Dzhemal's understanding of who is radical subject. And I think also the example of life of this famous philosopher also supports this idea, when in every moment of his life he tried to reaffirm his commitment to the why of the radical subject. Unfortunately, he is not well known among English-speaking audience, I guess. He is the author of the methodology of the political Islam, philosopher from Russia, Islamic public figure. And he passed away 4 years ago. He left behind himself a rich intellectual heritage, and understanding the scale of his personality and ideas, I think, would require a separate number of conversation. And that's why I'll try to be brief and to focus on what he implied under the radical subjects. Well, today, when we are observing not just another change in the social and economic formation, but we are in the very center of the metaphysical struggle for the existence of the man himself, I guess that the teachings of Dzhemal on the uncompromising and absolute struggle or a fight of a man with the outside world presents an extremely important subject. And I would like to stress that it's important to understand that we are not, that with the profane and liberal interpretation of the modernistic interpretation of who radical is, his position, as he was an eschatologist and based his teachings on monotheism and absolute transcendent God, it has little in common. According to Dzhemal, in the depths of the mankind, there is also this titanic coal that is accumulated in the selected radicals or passionate men or kshatriyas, who are ready to sacrifice themselves even in the face of the obvious defeat and an imminent death, thus showing not a simple recklessness, but a fight against all destructive fate, the totality of the oppressing being that encloses these heroes within the oppression of the time and space continuum. And I think that this type of heroes is certainly not necessarily strive or looking for their death, but their guts, their gut burns with a thirst to overturn all the insanity of the external world in order to establish the highest form of service to the one and only God. He has this heroic type, has this spiritual disposition capable of transcending beyond the world and beyond the sensible and physical perception. And in a way, I think he also represents the very high metaphysics of the warrior caste that echoes with the Evola's famous work of said Ride the Tiger, where a person is guided in, or should be guided in whatever situation he finds himself by the most rigid internal opposition to any external and desacralized system. And he is always, I mean, this heroic type is a meaningful distance from the surrounding environment. And where does, I think we can raise this question, this heroic impulse comes from? Dzhemal, in this case, often recalls that God made a person a viceroy or his representative on earth, Khilafa. And he didn't made as a viceroys of angels or other creatures. Thus, he endowed a man or Adam with a special mission, making him an instrument of his providential thought. God creates man from a special type of clay. One is dry and sonorous, and the other is moist and pliable. And in this, into this clay-made man, the Almighty God breathes in a bit or a small particle from his spirit, from Arabic, Ruh Allah. But Iblis or Lucifer, he doesn't know about this action, and his fiery light essence, which doesn't allow him to kneel before this clay man. And since this very beginning of the time, the eschatological confrontation between man and Iblis has been unfolding. And Ruh Allah is an, according to Djemal's explanation, it is this apophatic point or very small dot. It is a pure non-identity and inequality with the all surrounding being, and its activation of this dot and awareness of it, it actually forms the entire fate or entire path of the hero or the radical person subject. For this, the prophets of monotheism come. For this, the revelation is given for the radical subject as a guide for the fight against the false idols endlessly produced by the profane society. And for this, there are certainly regular prayer practices in the Islamic tradition as an expression of one's orientation towards something that is opposite to everything that can be experienced and perceived in this life, that is everything created or everything that exists. This is how the radical warrior, the radical or the warrior acquires his ontological I and enters onto the axis of the worlds, and he, through internal struggle, is able to overcome his clay essence, and his consciousness clearly distinguish between what is being from the transcendent God, and it is no way connected with being, standing above, the God, standing above all the dichotomies of good or evil or good or bad and other dichotomies. Dzhemal gives an example of, calls us to imagine this dot as through the examples. For example, let's imagine that this dot is put on the endless white paper, and with the appearance of this small dot, all the infinity becomes limited by it. It is centered around this point, and this point from this moment acts as an absolute opposition to infinity. And the providence thought of the Almighty God is connected with the fact that this apophatic point is related to meaning and must take control and neutralize the infinitely large inertia of meaningless existence. And I would like to also point that, as it was told, Iblis, or a light being, who didn't wish to obey Adam as the carrier, of this small part of God's spirit. Iblis promised to lead Adam and his descendants astray from the path of monotheism. And according to the Dzhemal, society is the shadow of Iblis, or Lucifer, on earth. It is its reflection on earth. And I think everyday being in the wheel of endless affairs and plans, person perceives this as a due and an integral part of his everyday modern life. And sometimes he, yes, says sadly that this is life and time is money, but there is no other alternative. We have to adapt. And he cannot even imagine that we are already living in the time of Lucifer. And in the space that is the domination of Lucifer, and being entangled in a huge amounts of social relations, responsibilities, performing absolutely virtual, unproductive actions, a modern person pays with his internal energy and time potential, thus feeding the tissue of the society or the body of the Iblis. And particularly, it is a sad situation to observe today how young people are turning into an army of techno zombies, the slaves of the Antichrist, who no longer, I mean, these young people feel this zeal inside, the heat of their inner desire to fight for the higher mission, for the higher goals. And also some find their way out in the form of drug abuse or committing suicide or going into fashionable contemplative practices, but it is certainly not that path of the hero. And the society already blocked the stairs that leads us up. The cosmic egg, Genon's cosmic egg, is impenetrable anymore. And to feed the body of the Lucifer, society at every stage of its development needs to alienate more and more human energy and time. But the many billion mass of human material is still sharing traditional values, especially in our country as well. And to gather these people, to retrain them, to clean them, and driving them all into the office ghetto seems to be, for the liberal club, an extremely costly enterprise. And today, the development of technologies actually removes this problem as well, since technologies already acquiring their own artificial ontology, their own consciousness, and they no longer need waste human material. And society always tried to exterminate or dissolve in comfort those in whom this spirit still glimmers, in whom this point of internal opposition does not allow one to completely forget oneself in the infinite dream. And today, in the era of singularity, of post-humanism, it is obvious that a very small percentage of humanity will be able to enter this new brave world. But on the other hand, these extreme conditions, I think, open up a possibility for more radical subjects to come, who are not willing to bow their heads to the totality of the society. And in this regard, I think, Dzhemal, is important to study, to know who the radical experience of denial, of absolute denial of being, was able to transfer to the high and refined intellectual plane. An adherent of radical monotheism today is not only one who is capable of rising a sword and burning down everything around, but primarily And mostly it is, or he should be, the one who rises intellectual thought to the very high level.